Hey there, it's Brian. On this episode of Heart to Heart, we speak with career coach and podcaster Dallas Travers. Dallas is a dynamic presence, and her unique, individualized approach to career guidance has won her acclaim in the acting community as well as other industries. This episode is filled with her empowering thoughts on how actors can strike a balance between taking risks and maintaining security. Plus, you'll get a super rare peek behind the curtain as Dallas dives into the behind the scenes of One-on-One Next Level and shares her thoughts on what sets us apart in the industry. Before you listen, you've got to grab our Backstage Pass. It's packed with Dallas's top tips, insider advice, and additional resources that will give you a competitive edge. You can grab the Backstage Pass by going to podcastbackstagepass.com.
You know what's funny, Dallas? Because I was thinking of you and I was like, what's a good way that you could like flip the chair for just a second? Because Dallas is going to come so prepared. I know you very well. And I was like, but I want to share with Dallas something to kick the show off. To kick this off. So Dallas, I love this phrase, and it goes for your clients, it goes for our clients, it goes for everybody. But there is a favorite besides, I'm sure I'll say a couple things later about Bill Shakespeare. But there's this modern day athlete, Dallas, and you may not be aware of his quotes, but he says some incredible quotes. So here's one of the many quotes he says that I just love. He says, "You miss 100% of the shots you never take." And by the way, it's Wayne Gretzky.
Oh, it's Gretzky. Yeah.
So, and then he says variations of it too, Dallas. Like he'll say, I just want you to listen to this one, then we can talk. But he'll say, the thing that's related to it, he'll do variations of that. He says, only one thing is ever guaranteed. That is that you will definitely not achieve the goal if you don't take the shot.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, just in terms of your listeners, right? Actors. I think like an industry or a profession where rejection is built into the equation. Like if you are an actor, you're signing up to be rejected. That can create the sense of paralysis for people, and it becomes easy, they can fake their way into thinking they're taking the shot when really they're just like maneuvering around the goal over and over and over again without ever shooting, right?
That's right.
Getting another new set of headshots. Like, how is that actually going to help you?
Yeah, Brian and I go through this all the time. We just completed like the LA Super Showcase for actors who just recently moved here, and also who actors live here, but especially for the actors who've recently moved here or thinking about moving here. They'll say like, I don't think I'm going to do it. I have an agent here in New York, and I'm pretty set for a while. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you, how many auditions, television and film auditions, or auditions has your agent gotten you in the last year? 2. I'm like, so you're actually having the nerve to say that you have an agent and you've gone on 2 auditions in 1 full year. And that's why you're not going to put yourself out there to take the shot in Los Angeles? Because they want to hide behind that feeling of like, well, if I don't take the shot, I made everything. I didn't miss anything. So I can feel good about myself.
Yes. Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. I'm not a risk averse person at all. Mm-hmm. So this, I absolutely agree. And it's so true. And I wonder for someone who is just naturally more risk averse, or someone who has a value of security, how does this idea translate for them? Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like even my husband is much more risk averse than I am. And I was sharing actually, here's how to know the difference between the two of us. If we have to hang a painting on the wall, Andrew will research the type of plaster we have in our wall. And then he'll go and he'll consult with 2 people at Home Depot to get the perfect kind of nails. And he'll use a level and just do all of the things to get the picture just so. I run to Target and grab like sticky tape stick it on the back of the picture and glue it to the wall, and that's my solution. And there's, that's such a description of how different we are. So I'd be curious to know how he or someone like him would relate to this idea of just go for it, right? Because for some people, just going for it is not as easy.
But I got to say, Dallas, when you were talking about that blend is a winning formula. Your husband, the way he approaches it, the way you approach it, you meet in the middle, you get a lot of things done in a really good way that way.
Well, and I'm also realizing the picture still gets hung, right? So if we're using this Gretzky analogy, he's also taking the shot.
Yeah.
The way we do it is just different.
He's just doing a lot of preparation.
Yeah. This kind of describes how I work and how Mark works.
Oh, no. Really? It's funny. Like, you could even call us frickin' frack or whatever. But he's right. I mean, Brian really is, meticulous. He's thorough. Thank God, especially in this day and age. Without Brian, this is a key phrase for Brian. Okay. Once again, Wayne Gretzky, and then I'll drop him. Okay. Wayne Gretzky, a good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great hockey player plays where the puck is going to go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. So Brian plays where the puck's heading.
He's always thinking that way. And he's always like, okay, what can I do to prepare? I don't want to have like even a class posted 3 weeks before. It has to be scheduled months before. We want to get this thing done. It has to be, we want everything way in advance because we don't want to have an earthquake happen and then we have to like be frantic.
Yes.
Right. So Brian, what is that like for you in an industry where things change so rapidly and just even the casting process is so much of hurry up and wait? So how do you maintain your mental health being a planner in an industry that isn't really about planning?
That's something I still work on because it does drive me nuts.
Yeah.
But I think the way I view it now is because I know there's going to be earthquakes, it's inevitable. Like we have it daily. Yeah. We have so many events. So I know it's like the 90% that I can control, the 90% of the ones that I can kind of like tuck away, I'm going to do it. So I have the bandwidth for to handle the daily earthquakes. But it's when, everything is an earthquake that, I go crazy and I don't like. So that's when
Right. So you do everything to make sure that the earthquake is caused by something outside of your control, right? Yes. If it's within your control, you've got it.
That's what I tell our staff. I was like, the industry's going to lob, and the actors, they're going to lob so many curveballs at us where like, if we make a mistake, then it compounds the issue. So we have to make sure everything we do, that we dot the I's, we cross the T's, we don't make mistakes on our end. We're early, we're ahead of the deadline because it's inevitable that curveballs are going to be thrown our way and we need the bandwidth to deal with that. Whereas if we're too busy correcting our own mistakes, there's no way we can do that and deal with curveballs incoming.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, should
we
get
Brian's
started?
telling me is, it's not like I'll give you an example. If there was a dinner party we were having, probably like, hour or two before I'd set the table. Brian, the night before, he's setting that table. And this way it's done. No matter what happens the next day, you're ready. And you know what? It's really taught me. It's like, I always thought mine was enough, what, I'll sit at like, an hour or 2 hours before they come. Something happens, you're screwed. Brian's way, you're always covered.
We had one for our LA Super Showcase this time where we had a flake, and I overbooked by one, and Mark was like, "That should be fine before Sunday." And I was like, "No. I like to just have a replacement and still be overbooked because sometimes they just don't show up. Like you just don't, they just no show." And then, and sure enough, Sunday we had a no show.
Wow, Brian.
And had we not overbooked by one until the very last minute, we would have been underbooked by one, which is no good.
And here's the thing I still can't get over. We're in an industry where they're mostly talking to actors saying, be on time, be on early, always. And then meanwhile, not only do some people have the nerve not to show, but they won't even get in touch with us or even offer to replace themselves.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
And then you find out it's
have a
because an out of
whole
10.
episode.
Yeah,
We could have an entire episode about that, right?
And not to say, listen, the main thing is that there are people everywhere who are very conscientious, and some people aren't in any field, in any. So, it's just one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of being in the human experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I want to start this interview from the beginning, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
This is your 30th year in business. And given the last 2, I guess going on 3 years, it's remarkable.
So does that mean you put an asterisk on those 3 years?
There's like an extra gold star or something. Or we add another decade, actually. So congratulations on 40 years in business. But I think our listeners or your listeners would be interested, Mark, to hear how One-on-One got started. So can you take us behind the scenes there and tell the story of how it began?
I'll try to. Okay, so twofold. When I was an actor, I experienced enough. I think it was one time what it was like to be in the room in an industry related, let's just say, workshop, and having that weird experience where, in this case, it was for a talent agent, and everybody pretty much there was a Q&A where everybody asked these questions, and then one by one, everybody got up and did a monologue and had to listen to each other. And, the people running it actually thought the actors were supporting each other by being in the room. And as an actor, I felt like the negative energy in the room, because everybody else is so concerned about their turn, they're not even watching what's in front of them. And it really disturbed me. It was a really yucky feeling. So that's number one. And then number two, when I had decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to look into other avenues in this business. I worked at a talent agency out here. I was filling in for someone at a talent agency. And I really got to see firsthand by working the front desk how many actors who had just moved from New York were dropping off their headshots at the time, and or mailing a beautiful cover letter that they prepared with the headshot, wanting it to get into the agent's hands so that the agent would give them an appointment to come in. It never made it to the agent's hands, whether it was dropped off or the mail. One of my responsibilities I was given is to throw them all away. So that was a big wake up call.
Totally.
So then I got to see how it's very difficult. How do you get in the door when it's it's not so easy sometimes, just because maybe you didn't go to Yale, or the agent didn't come and see you there. So how do you get seen? But at the same time, if it's in an unprofessional atmosphere, they're not going to go there either. So like, what can be done?
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is you saw a problem that needed to be solved, and you understood. And part of it is, you just have a brain that works this way, Mark, but also just the serendipity or the luck that had to be on your side is also so magical to me. But you saw that it isn't just enough for actors to be in front of people who can help them. The environment has to be conducive for the actor to shine.
That's right.
And I see how I'm lucky because I get to see a little bit of the operations of your company. And that is an intention that you have held for these 30 years, really putting the actor experience first so they truly are set up for success. And I may be a little biased, but I think that is the reason why you're still standing 30 years later, and you are hands down, without objection, the leader in this field. So you set the pace, and it's the intentionality that you, Brian, bring into the service you provide.
Well, thank you, Dallas. But I will say the thing that you said, it is true. And this is what I really want the actors to convey is that when you set the intention on something you truly believe in, the part of the success is the luck that comes your way. And I'm so thankful, because let me tell you something. I wouldn't have crossed paths with you. I certainly wouldn't have crossed paths with Brian, who really came from you. And all these intangibles would not have happened had the intention been strong enough. But then even then, this is where I do believe for some, I'm refraining from saying because I'm going to turn people off, but that God comes into play. That,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? When there's something good that you're doing, then you're going to get some help, because I would definitely not be here today without all the luck and fortune from something much higher than myself that came my way.
And Mark, it was your intention too from the beginning that you wanted this place to be where like good, trained, professional actors. And I think then, I mean, even now, but back then, that was probably like a mind, people like, you're turning away business. Like you're not accepting all the actors that would want to come in and pay and just be, and I think you had the intention of making this someplace different.
But selfishly, what he's saying, Dallas, is, I just didn't see, I couldn't take, I couldn't take a dollar from someone who wasn't ready yet in their acting career. And this is a business that does attract a certain percentage of people that want to make a fast dollar in a quick way because they see like George Clooney or in today's world, somebody else getting paid like $20 million for a film. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere, but the temptation is there to follow that path.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Hey, it's Brian. I'm dropping in on an important announcement. What you need to know is you have more control over your career than you think. The thing standing between you and the career you want is your connections. And that's where One-on-One Next Level comes in. If you are not a member yet, you can apply to join at oneononenextlevel.com. Press pause and do that now. If you are already a member and you are ready to get back on track, we want to invite you to book a strategy session with us led by myself personally. We will help you prioritize which classes make the most sense given your career goals. You can find these under the Resource Hub in your account portal. We can't wait to hear your success story.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to hand you the microphone. So I have so many questions, but fill our listeners in on how you became Frick out of this Frick and Frack combination here.
In a way, as Mark said, Dallas, it had mostly all to do with you because I got, we had known each other. I took you, I was an acting major at NYU in my senior year of college. I took your great program in New York and then I stayed in touch. I'd done more of your stuff. And then I think I got an email from you saying, would you be interested in the programming associate opening at Next Level? And I was like, this is a big job. Like, I don't think I can do this. And I think I think I even got on a phone call with you and you were saying, Brian, I think this is like, you're perfect for this job because you get it, but you're also organized. Like you understand the business, but you're also business savvy. And I think it took a few times for me to finally, I'd spoken to Mark and I wasn't sure this was for me. I was like, what am I getting myself?
Yeah.
I was well, because I had taken classes at One-on-One in New York and it was like, you walk into the space and it's an intimidating, huge operation. And, at the time, Next Level was a smaller operation, but, I still didn't know if I had the, ability to do it. So I jumped right in and as programming associate and learned a lot. And we went through a lot of interesting, that was kind of the start of some of the drama in LA at the time. So it was I had a very short time to get acclimated to what was going on. And then I think I was probably at Next Level for maybe like 3 or 4 years before, Mark had approached me, I think seeing how well LA was run and asking me if I wanted to also, basically oversee New York and do the same for New York. And that's how I became Frick.
That's how you became Frick. I have to confess, because it's not like we hung out, Brian. Like I knew you and you knew me, but I honestly, other than just seeing your work ethic, right? And just having a gut feeling, it really does feel serendipitous that out of all of the names I could have mentioned to you, Mark, that it was Brian.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding? And by the way, this is really great for actors to learn. We all come to those times in your life where you have to ask other people for help. So I was asking those close to me, you being one of them, for like, hey, listen, do you know anyone? I need some help here at the office. And you were like, and the way you responded, you went, I think I have the perfect person. Let me check back with you in a day or two after I check with him. I think I have it. And the way you said it, because I'd been through that before with some people who referred somebody and it just didn't work out. I was like, I'm going to wait for Dallas' call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really something.
And it's like you said, Dallas, it's not like we hung out or we saw each other every day or so. I also don't know how I was in your head, because it's not like, you know, I was like probably one of many people that worked with you.
But you know what's coming to mind for me? And I don't know who said this quote first, but it's the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So Brian, and so this is a takeaway for the listeners today, right? Like the way you're showing up in the waiting room before you go into an audition, the way you sign off on your email signature, like all of these little things, the way you treat the front desk person at Next Level when you're showing up to your workshop. Like people notice and your reputation does precede you. And you, Brian, are just someone who I think who operates with impeccability, both of you actually. And that's why it's stuck in my head, because even though I had never seen you manage a company, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I knew you had the perfect skills for this.
Dallas, he is you're right. He's the definition of it's all in the details.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So like, how does this apply to the people listening? It's really relating to yourself in every moment as the person who already has the career you want. Like, how would you behave? How will you behave when? And start doing that now.
I've learned a lot about, grit and about how to manage.
Yeah.
I always remember that this sounds it sounds weird, but I took at NYU, we had a theater studies class with Shakespeare, and it was really hard. We were reading these like 13th century or whatever, like witchcraft books in old ancient English, and they were like 8 pages long, and you had to like write an essay on it. And I literally felt like I was about to cry. Like it was so difficult. And I remember I went up to the professor. I was like, I don't think I can do this. And she was like, I'm realistic. I don't care if you take Shakespeare away in your life. I know that, like 5 years from now, like you're not going to, like, Shakespeare's not going to do anything for you. She's like, this class isn't about that. It's about learning how to work through something that seems impossible and make it possible. And I always take that away away with me. And I apply that to the work here, because even when I started in LA and we had to deal with all that drama, and then when I had to run both LA and New York, it seemed impossible at first, but you just keep chipping away at it, and then it becomes possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I really hear that. This, I feel like, is a good time to pivot slightly, because we're talking about perseverance, like serendipity and perseverance and impeccability, all of these characteristics that I think are part of the recipe for success. So I would love to hear from both of you, and you can decide who goes first. But do you have a favorite actor success story? And can you share it with us?
I'll let Mark go first, but I will add we have so many amazing success stories at One-on-One Next Level, like so many, like big ones too. But I'll let Mark, or unless you want me to go first.
No, whatever you prefer.
I'll go first, because because I think Mark has some like great iconic ones.
Yeah.
One I have, it's not like one of like, like, for example, we've had people who've, they're on SNL now, and after having gone through multiple of our programs and got their agent here, we've had people become series regular, all that stuff. But one like kind of type of success story that really resonates with me is, so when I first started in LA, I was, going through our programming, and, Mark normally every year goes to Sundance, and one of the gems, at our studios, he's been able to secure filmmaker classes. So filmmakers from Sundance that he watches their movies and goes to their screenings, talks to their Q&A, he gets them here. And some of the joy is some of our actors, they're cast in the table reads or the workshops or the actual films of these filmmakers who, regularly go to film festivals. So then I saw that, and that inspired me to have classes with TV directors and executive producers and writers and showrunners in LA, because it's more TV, less, indie film than I think that was really popular in New York. So, at first, and this could be a good thing or a bad thing, but people should always have skepticism, because they do know there's a lot of scams out there, and so people are like, but what's the point of these? Like, they can't cast me in anything. Like, shouldn't I just be, taking a class with casting associate number 5? And I know from my personal experience, and this is from some of the work we had done, Dallas, reaching out to like showrunners and producers, I got great results. I still always, and this guy teaches for us now, Adam Belanoff. He was somebody I forged a connection with, and then he was the executive producer on Major Crimes on TNT. And I would, see like roles that were right for me, like guest stars, and I would email him, and he would just get me the audition for a guest star, and it'd be like on, it's cast by UDK, a huge casting office, and he would always forward me the casting director's response, and it was always hilarious. It was always like, oh, like I love this submission. I wonder why, like we've never heard of him, or like, oh, great idea. I wonder why he wasn't submitted, or oh, like he should be on our list. And obviously, it's like the truth is, I'm not with Gersh, so obviously they're not, I'm not on your list. But that really taught me that, and multiple examples taught me the power of these. So I guess my favorite success story is seeing the skepticism that came of this kind of new format that I was debuting in LA. And I can name people who booked like guest stars on like network shows just from a class they took. But my favorite is we had Tom Verica, who's an executive producer with Shondaland, with Shonda Rhimes. He played Viola Davis's husband on How to Get Away with Murder, and he was an executive producer on Scandal and Bridgerton, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and he did a few classes with us, and obviously gave great insight, such an inspiration. But the success stories that came out of that were some of our actors not being called in for an audition, but being straight offered roles on their new Netflix series. So that is, I would say, my favorite success story at our studio, because it's thinking outside the box. It's not going through the traditional way. And that's something that I think we really try to incorporate in so many of the things that we do. Even if you think about our Atlanta trip, had plenty of skepticism at first. We're like, you can't do that. You can't. You're like all the naysayers, that kind of stuff. And even the industry there was very skeptical. And I remember it took us close to a year to get it off the ground, because the industry there was so like, we don't need LA talent, we don't need New York talent. And we were able to say, give us one shot. We guarantee we'll bring you like diverse, talented, professional actors that you won't find in your local market. And ever since that first showcase we did, now the industry there fights over who gets a spot at our next showcase. And half of, like 50% of our actors get meetings from that every single time. So I guess let me modify my favorite success story is when we offer things that might seem out of the box and might not go the traditional route, the traditional, the traditional methods. And then actors, they do it and they find success.
Yeah. You know what I think for me, and I can say this because I know neither of you will. For me, the difference between what you offer and most other workshops and studios for actors is you really approach this through the lens of how can we create opportunities. And it's opportunities for your teachers to come into an environment where they're really cared for and they're going to meet really talented actors and be compensated fairly for their time, but also opportunities for your actors, because I think there are other approaches, which are just, I could like whip up a quick Zoom workshop and make some money. And that is not the priority for you all. So what you shared is such an illustration of that core value in your company.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Mark?
To our madness. That's
right? Yeah. Do you have a favorite success story, Mark?
I was cheating a little bit while he was talking. I was looking at some of the internet, because we've had people who to this day, like Gina Rodriguez, who was the star of Jane the Virgin. She continues to refer actors to our place. And we had, there are a couple that come to mind as far as like, there are many, but the one is that I thought of just for inspiration is there was a woman who did our LA trip. It was called the LA trip at the time. Now it's called the LA Super Showcase. Uh-huh. And she came from New York, and she ended up being one of the people on the experience. Like, people got their agent this way or manager. She did not. And she was very, she had her tail between her legs, and, we went back to New York, and it was like a few months later, she had taken a class with, I don't know if I can say it or not, but, like a prominent casting director. Let's just keep it safe. Yeah. And they called her in like a month after the class. The casting director remembered her, and she called her in for an audition for a lead role in a TV show. And she booked it, and she went from obscurity to becoming like an actress signed with CAA. And to this day, she's a working actress. And, so that's one. Yeah. The other one was a guy who I was friendly with, this woman at the time who was in film school, and she was at NYU Film School. And she said, "You have to come to my class. I'm going to sneak you in. You have to see this director talk. And he's such a nice guy, and we'll go out afterwards." So I went and I saw this guy named Gary Winnick. He was giving a talk, and he'd made one feature film, and it was called Sweet Nothing. Mm-hmm. And so he was so dynamic after we went out, afterwards, and we were talking about filmmaking, and he had made this film. And I said, would you teach? Because you could just tell this guy was so, it's funny. There's a saying out, Dallas, give me the person, and I'm not talking about him per se, but for anybody, give me the person, even if it's for a job, give me the person who's less talented, but who has the most desire. And that will be the person that will succeed. The person with the most desire. Mm-hmm. So I could see this guy just had it. He had such desire. So I asked him to teach my very first film class of at one-on-one at the time. This was like, in one of the first years. Okay. And he showed the actors. He had them all the men. He gave them one set of sides for the lead man in his role in his film called Sweet Nothing. And the women, he gave the same sides. And so they came in one at a time, and they had time to, they had the material for a couple of days, and he filmed their audition. He filmed their mock audition. Mm-hmm. Then he showed the callbacks, and the casting director at the callbacks, it was Sheila Jaffe. She was the casting director, and he had the footage of the callbacks for his film, so that the actors all the female actors who had read for the woman lead part could see all the emerging. And at that time, they were still emerging, but like Wendy McKenna was one of the women who auditioned for the role. And Juliana Margulies auditioned for that same role. The woman who booked the role was Mira Sorvino, the lead female. And it was her first big film. It wasn't even a big film. It was an independent film. It was her first lead. Yeah. And you could clearly see by watching the film why Mira Sorvino booked the lead role. And then for the men, Tom Sizemore had read for the role, and all of these young men at that time. And the guy that booked the role for the lead man was Michael Imperioli. Mm-hmm. And you could see, and he showed the callbacks, the footage from the casting with Sheila Jaffe. He'd showed the callbacks, and all the actors could see why he chose, because he's the one who chose Michael Imperioli to be in his film. At that moment, I said, there were two things happened. Yes. Gary and I formed a really great friendship. He was I've never seen that happen before. And I said to myself, hey, wait a second. We've got to start filming these classes so the actors now can see themselves. And at that time, nobody was doing this. Totally. And
this is like the early 90s.
And we've always prided ourselves on two things, there's always this thing going around, educational purposes. Well, what we've always done is in our classes, we've had whether it's the casting director or the filmmaker, assign material that they've worked on ahead of time to the actors so the actors could prepare it and they could learn from that nuance called preparing for the audition. But this way they could hear it not from an acting teacher, but someone who actually did this day to day and get the feedback and then therefore the confidence to, by doing it again and again, starting to build that confidence so that when they did get called in for an audition, they knew exactly what to do. So long story short, we started filming all of our classes, and shortly after, other studios started doing it, and that's fine. They say that what is it? The best form of flattery is when imitation. But I'll stop there because and then Gary. Oh, and then seeing how Gary went on to some amazing. I mean, he ended up directing like all kinds of great movies, like 13 Going on 30. There's a lot of, and then we also at that time, a little later, had these guys who were emerging, and they were just getting by, and their names were the Duplass brothers, and they taught it one-on-one. And they brought in their friends to teach too. And so we were connecting actors with these emerging filmmakers and even gave them casting space because they couldn't afford casting space. And they ended up actually casting a couple one-on-one actors from that experience. And that film at the time, it was called The Puffy Chair. So, seeing this talent and how, just from the incubator stage and just it really is all about perseverance and staying with it.
Yeah. I love that story. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
And it's so inspiring because it's not just, for us, not just seeing the actors grow, but also the industry. It's like there's been so many people where, we're like, oh, this person this person that you think is this powerhouse heavy hitter in the industry today, maybe 30 years ago, like you see in our system, they were like a casting assistant or like a junior manager just starting out. And because we've been around for so long, just kind of sometimes when I go through the history of, our events, it really is like you see the arc of the progress of people's careers.
Yeah, that's really fulfilling. As I was listening to both of you share your feedback, I realized what an unfair question this is. And I want to reflect something to you that you may not even really be aware of, but it is not normal to have so many success stories. That is not the norm in your, and I'm retired, but I was in the industry for a long time, and I'm still connected to a number of people in the industry, and that is not normal. And I realize, what's your favorite success story? Because most people have 3 to choose from, but it's hard for you to even choose because, again, for me, observing you, it just goes back to the intentionality and the value you have of creating opportunities for people. And that's what's unfolded. So there are almost too many choices, but I love what you both shared there.
Hey folks, Brian here. Mark and I often cringe when people call One-on-One Next Level a workshop studio because we are so much more than that. You and I both know that not all workshop studios are the same, and I can tell you with complete confidence that no other studio offers the same level of care or programming that we do, and we do so with pride. Here's just a few examples.
I'm Emily, and before One-on-One Next Level, I was in a super dark place in my career. I tried a lot of things to find representation, but nothing seemed to work, and I felt invisible. Then, almost as a Hail Mary, I signed up for a manager session. It was incredible, but it was also the thing to land me a manager. Since then, I booked a national commercial, I've gone on to create a thriving voiceover career, and signed with an agent, all through these classes and programs. One-on-One Next Level has been the single most important thing that's influenced my acting career and life in so many ways.
I'm Neil. In the last year, I booked 2 co-stars and 1 top-of-show guest star on major TV series. I also shot my first lead in a feature film. In fact, I've hit 20 big milestones thanks to the connections that I've made in classes at One-on-One Next Level. The key has been getting in front of casting directors. And that's why I love One-on-One Next Level. If you're not a member yet, what are you waiting for? Every actor deserves face time with the people in the business who can move your career forward. And One-on-One Next Level can help you do that.
Did you know One-on-One Next Level produces over 335 events and classes each month? Whether you join us in person or attend on Zoom, you can meet with A-list casting directors, filmmakers, TV showrunners, and executive producers, as well as agents and managers when you become a member. These days, it's harder and harder to get real face time with industry pros, but One-on-One Next Level makes it possible. To become a member, visit www.oneononenextlevel.com and click join. We can't wait to hear your success story.
Can we shift gears a little bit and talk about pay to play?
Sure. Before you do that, I just want to say one more thing, Dallas. The one thing I want to say is, you really are only as good as the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
It really is true. So whatever you do in life, really be cognizant of the people you surround yourself with, and it'll be no coincidence why you will see yourself achieve because of that.
Yeah, which is such a strong argument for to back up your practice of really only accepting actors into your studio who are ready, right? Because that helps. What is that? A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
So you're really putting that into play.
Actually, before we talk about the other thing, can I also add in, while we're still in the success story part, some of our favorite success stories isn't necessarily even, we have some great ones of, people getting success from our classes and our programming, but also we have tons of actors who connect with each other. And that's something that in our 30th year, we hear so much about people like, hey, I found a community of artists, not just from the industry I took classes with, but the other actors in the room. And from there, we did films, we got married, we collaborated. And so that's been some of, our favorite stuff to hear as well.
Yeah, that's really fun. All right. So we are going to talk about pay to play.
Sure.
So when someone throws that term at you or says, studios, that's just pay to play, and almost has that attitude of being better than or ostracizing this format, what is your response to that?
Who goes first?
You go first.
Well, without thinking, Dallas, because that's me. Yeah. He thinks, I don't think. No, without thinking, I first word that comes out into my head is derogatory. It's just okay. So that's the first thing. Number two, we actually are cognizant of the time it takes for a casting director to not only go through the materials of the students in their classes and look at the footage, if they have footage, look at the picture and resume, and then on top of it, assign material that they feel they'd be right for and to think or that they'd like to see them, prepare for, and utilizing that time and to show our appreciation and not just appreciation, but that's the way the world works. We do reward them for that time that they spend in doing those things at our studio. So I certainly don't look at it as pay to play. I look at it as if you wanted today to, let's just say, have someone teach at your studio, chances are, if you didn't know them and whatever, you'd have to compensate them for their time for something, no matter what you did, whether it be real estate or coaching or so. I feel like that is a nice derogatory spin when people say things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many things I want to say, and I'm going to just be the host here and not take over. But Brian, go ahead.
Well, I think the way I view it too is, this is how the industry, in a way, just same with how you remembered my name, just because we had worked together. Yeah. You remember, sometimes you remember the people that you interact the most with, and that's how human nature works, and that's how relationship building works. And certainly, I think the actors who come to our studio, after they have their training at their conservatories, oftentimes with acting teachers who haven't worked maybe in the real world in 50 years. Like part
Mhm.
of the educational aspect here is being under the supervision of like somebody who's actively working, a casting director, a filmmaker, like reps that they actually know the trends in the real world. Because this industry changes so quickly. What is valid now wasn't valid 3 years ago, and what was valid 3 years ago wasn't valid 10 years ago. So it's
Mhm.
a different kind of training, different kind of professional development, education. But it's like part of our slogan, where actors find success. Part of relationship building, not just in the entertainment industry, but in any industry, is FaceTime, is getting a
Yeah.
chance to know someone's quirks and their dislikes, and having the chance to showcase your work and hope that there might be an opportunity. And we also don't want to negate that or say that never happens, or even say that shouldn't happen, because let's, in a way, my direct answer to the pay to play thing is, let's all try to pass the straight face test. Let's not it's like let's
Yeah.
not let's not BS.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I'm going to share a couple of things and you can edit this out if you want. But as I was listening to both of you, one thing that I think is different than 10 years ago is there are so many safeguards in place to protect the actor, right? So right before you came on board, Brian, there was quite a hullabaloo in Los Angeles. And because of that, laws were passed in order to safeguard the actors. So for me, this whole idea of, especially you all, but being pay to play, it's like that's irrelevant. The actors are now really, really protected. And if you're a company that's been around for 30 years, of course, you're abiding by the laws and the rules and the guidelines that are in place, or you wouldn't still be around. But the other thing that came up for me was, and it's how I try to relate to money. Money is a very simple expression of appreciation. And so if I am an actor and my intention is to build a career that I am proud of, by investing in a structured way to form connections and build relationship, that is an expression of appreciation toward myself, toward the industry that I'm a part of, toward the professionals that I want to collaborate with. Like, it can be a really beautiful exchange and actually much more powerful than this idea that an actor is supposed to like sit at home reading Shakespeare every day and hope for a big break. That is the most disempowering thing I can think of. So to be offered an opportunity to invest in yourself in this way where you're being cared for, I think is such a gift. And when the industry can bring that same level of appreciation and respect to what is a wonderful exchange, then it's just like a beautiful experience for all. And this exchange of appreciation in the form of money is not only appropriate, but in my opinion, it should be revered. So take that, everyone.
And what's so funny? It's nice when you go, oh, like the old way, and the old way, it's like you're reliant on your agent or your manager who makes 10% and is only going to put in 10% of the work for your career, and
Right.
Waiting for the phone to ring. And also, like, what if you didn't go to Juilliard and Yale and had an amazing showcase? 5 years, 5 years, 10, and then you don't get a rep, and then it's back to the bus to Iowa. and like you said, I think it's a very empowering thing. It puts people like in charge of their
Yes.
careers, as they should. They take ownership of the relationship building, and absolutely, I would say, from the, like as Mark said, from the act of doing in these classes, you may not learn audition technique or cold reading or monologues or any of that stuff, but what that casting director is going to be like from your 3 weeks with them in the classroom here. So when you actually go into the audition room, you kind of already know they may be a little snarky, they may be not looking at you, and that no longer throws you off your game when there's a very important opportunity out there.
Right. That's such a valuable point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I want to know, Brian, this might be a good one for you. What's something about running one-on-one next level that you think might surprise people out there, or something that people might not be aware of?
I think, I mean, I know, you know, I would say we are a very, we hold professionalism in high regard when our
Yeah.
screening process for actors. We always say it's not just about talent, but it's about professionalism. And I remember, you know, before the last 2.5 years in New York, when we had in-person auditions, you know, the actors would come in with 2 monologues, or they'd come in, with a scene. And I was sitting in on, us running these. And I remember seeing like Mark kind of give people feedback and redirects and adjustments. And he was telling me, like, some of it isn't even just to see their acting and if they can actually take an adjustment. Some of it is to see their attitude. And if they fight you, if they give you like a feisty response, if they don't want to take feedback, you don't want that person in a class with a big casting director who, some of them are amazing teachers, but some of them, like, they're not acting teachers. And maybe their feedback an actor would disagree with. But it doesn't do anyone any good to have that kind of negative energy in the room. So I think people know that we hold professionalism in high regard. And I think maybe something people don't know is we don't just hold it with our actors. We actually hold it with our industry as well. I would say something people may not know is we are much more strict with our industry than with our actors. And, as Mark said, you want to surround yourself by people that you bring good energy, that, that uplift you. We have plenty of industry that we never have back or don't plan on ever having because of that. And we hold our community to high standards. So that's definitely one thing.
Yeah, totally. And also just understanding, you have an understanding of the ripple effect, right? Of if you don't hold everyone to the same high standard, how that can either slowly or very alarmingly impact the experience for all. So
yeah, I think here, because we care about every little detail, like I always joke about this, but like even like when we do our programs, like our Atlanta trip or our LA Super Showcase, or our advanced industry workshop, you usually end with like a nice little celebration. We end with like we want to have some alcohol and people have fun and have a mixer. But we're so specific that if we notice there's like more men than there are women, like for our Atlanta trip, we'll actually make a point of getting more beer. It's like every little detail here is like taken into account. And I really credit that to Mark because he's very detail oriented in that aspect. But I think, because we leave no stone unturned. I always say, I was like, if I gave the actors or the industry or the readers or the staff 100% of what they wanted, someone else would not get what they want. So in a way, the day-to-day running here is like we want everything to come together. We can't give everyone everything that they want because in a way it robs the other group of their experience. So we really have to find a middle ground for this whole thing to actually run.
And I want to just chime in on top of his, which goes back a little bit to pay to play, which is, and Shakespeare said it best, like, thou doth protest too much. There was a prominent casting director that we approached. And, we asked her to teach. She said, I love teaching. I just can't teach at your studio. And we said, why? She goes, you charge the actors. I just cannot, I'll do a university once a year, and I'd love to teach and I would love to do a 3-week class, but I just can't, you charge actors. There's just something not right about it. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Name your favorite charity and we will not charge the actors and we will donate $2,000 to your favorite charity if you can teach your 3-week class. And she was like, I'll have to check my schedule and get back to you. I just, so all of a sudden the balls, she ended up never teaching, and we really did try to, follow through several times. But, it's like those people who are so quick to judge, you know what I mean? Just watch it. As Shakespeare said, just watch a little bit about the person who's really on the pedestal.
Yeah, right. So you're not allowed to charge the actors, but I need to be paid. Right.
That sums things up very well.
Yeah. Well, and I just jotted down, Mark, like universities also charge actors.
Yeah, we were willing to pay her. And if she didn't want to be paid, we were going to donate money to her favorite charity. But it wasn't about that. It was about she wanted to, get on the pedestal and tell us anyway.
Yeah, right. We could go down that path. But I do want to say that universities also charge actors.
Yes,
a
of
lot.
course.
A lot.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything else about the company that might surprise people, whether that's like how you do things or the intentionality behind it?
We're always trying to listen to our audience. We feel like there's never enough we can do to make the experience as good as possible. And just like that for an actor, I feel like when you have that certain mindset, magical things will always happen and good things will always happen, because as we started with this whole thing, if the intention is there, 30 years go by and you're a working actor and you look back and you're like, how did this happen? The dots somehow connect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I got to tell you, every day I'm so grateful when I wake up that I was part of this, that I met Brian, that I met you, that it's almost like a miracle happened, but the miracle wouldn't have happened if one foot didn't go in front of the other.
Yep.
And that's for an actor, the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. I think that leads us to a great question to wrap things up with, which is, if you just look at the actors who are a part of your program, who are the most successful, if you could pick one characteristic or one thing that they do that other actors don't do, like what is the thing that seems to set them apart?
I think the word attitude is overused, but there is something about their energy that is pleasant, that is graceful, that is, I think you would use this in the past, of service. You enjoy being around them. And I think so many people don't realize, and it's easy, it's a tough career, and a lot of actors, they get into this tough headspace, and is this real? Is this a scam? Is this casting director worth it? Like why don't they like me? And I want them to, but that energy is it can be really off-putting, and and people can feel it. Like I always say, like, if I can feel, I when I was checking people in when I first started at Next Level, I could instantly feel when an actor had that type of energy. Or number two, when they were like jaded and over it, and they were like, what's the point? And they came in with that kind of that negative energy, negative vibes. I didn't even have to look at them. I could just be like, at the check-in podium, like looking down my paper, and somebody walks in and I can just feel it. And if I can feel it, the casting associates, the casting directors, the managers, the agents, they can feel it because they go through like thousands of these a day. So, however, it's like the ones with really great energy, they aren't, that's not always the majority of, of the people. And it's like a refreshing, like eucalyptus, like scented, like fresh air that goes in your face. And you naturally want to gravitate towards those people. You naturally, if you're in the industry, you naturally want to give them opportunity. We naturally want to have them here as readers. It's like you gravitate towards them because it's almost like everyone else is jaded or has is doing the fake thing, And I will say, just seeing a lot of our readers, our staff, or our Zoom hosts who do, and our actors, our members who do find success, like, are they talented? Absolutely. But it's not always the ones where you're like, wow, they are the most talented, or like they are above and beyond, like, they're the next Meryl Streep. They're great. But what I notice is the people who truly have good attitude, they're a pleasure to be around. You want to work with them. They get signed and they get called in and they book. And I've even had reps directly tell me, hey, I saw this guy at the showcase, or this actress at the showcase. She was good. She was fine. Her scene was good, but I didn't feel a burning desire that I had to rep them. They weren't like, but they stayed persistent, and they stayed persistent in a nice, graceful, giving way. And that has to mean something. And I signed them. And sure enough, 1 year later, they are working more than the ones I saw at the showcase, where I was like, they are the most talented. I have to have them now, because it's a ripple effect.
2 words, Dallas. I come up with humility and authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. That just summarizes what Brian said so perfectly, what I jotted down. Because the question was like, what are they doing that other actors aren't doing? And it's not what they're doing, it's how they're doing it. That's what I heard you say, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come on your show and
Thank you.
interview you. This was so much fun for me.
There was no one else we would invite other than you for our 30th because you brought us together.
You really did.
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
Dallas.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thanks for doing the work that you do and for creating such an opportunity for a community of people who are so committed to telling the stories that need to be told in order to help humans heal and connect with one another. And you play such a big role in that. It's just an honor for me to get to be in this space with you and to witness the hard work that you put in. So thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you, Dallas. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done it yet, grab the Backstage Pass. You've got to get the Backstage Pass. There's behind the scenes footage. We've taken the biggest takeaways from the episode and written them down for you. There's also tools and resources to help move your career forward. It's the easiest way to turn this podcast into a tool for your career as opposed to something you just listen to as you're doing the dishes.